So I wanted to do a video today to actually respond to a question I got on one of my comments from my last video, which was, what was more of a rush for me, doing live music or live theater? Because I've been in both, pretty extensively. And that resonated with me, that question, because it made me think about transitions, and changing and growing and evolving, and how that affects your life, and how that affects your career, and how that affects your art, how it affects everything. Transition is really difficult. Change is not easy. Moving away and letting go of certain things and then embracing other things is not easy sometimes. And sometimes it's the best thing, and I would say in every case it's a good thing, even though I'm positive that oftentimes people feel like they've made bad decisions and they have regrets and things like that. But I just think to myself, like, what's the upside of having regrets in that situation? So I always look at change as a good thing, even though I am somebody who lives with a lot of regret, and I have plenty of I wish things could have been different kind of moments in my life. So let me address the question. And first of all, you know what? I've been messing around with black and white photography for a while. I've been running around actually using the GH5 as my main photography camera because, to be honest with you, because everybody thinks the GH5 is not a good photography camera, and I think it's an amazing photography camera. So personally, I use my Panasonic S5 as my video camera. It's always my primary camera because to me, that's like a movie making machine, as is the GH5. But I like to have the GH5 just set up for photography and the S5 set up for video. However, in this case, today, I'm shooting this video with the GH5, and I'm using a TT Artisan 17mm f1.4 lens, which is essentially a 35mm lens, and because of the micro four thirds sensor. And so all the photography you're going to see in this video is from this setup, this 17mm 35 equivalent lens with the GH5, and I'm shooting in monochrome picture profile because I just wanted to think in black and white. Now obviously I'm shooting this in vlog, and so I think, just for the sake of this video and to keep it all consistent, let's switch over to black and white. So let's just do that now.
You think you know what you're doing, you think you know what you see, but you don't know what's inside, what's behind. Just like door number 3, one thing I notice, he makes you uncomfortable. So much you gotta make this little box and keep them living inside. Just like some kind of farm animal, a laboratory rat. See what happens if you test them up, let's get into that. You drug them, you bug them, you choke them, you poke them. You say that this is best for him, you act like you love him.
Okay, so I got all the technical stuff out of the way. Obviously, I'm shooting with the GH5. I am on Route 9W up in Highland, New York, which is a cool town. And I love finding broken down old buildings and stuff like that. And this building behind me has always intrigued me, so I got a bunch of photos of it. So anyway, to the point, transition and change. Okay, specifically to the question that was asked of me, moving from music to theater was a gigantic earthquake in my life. To give you a little personal background, my marriage had just fallen apart. My mother had passed shortly before that. And when my mother died, it was like a gigantic thing for me because, I was adopted, started my life in foster care. Like the day I was born, I was separated from my biological mother. And my adoptive parents, who I always considered saved my life because I had been in 3 foster homes before I was even 3 months old. And my parents made me permanent. So, I know it's not, popular in the adoption community to say anything good about adoptive parents, but the people who adopted me were beautiful people. They loved me. They tried their hardest. It was not perfect, but, it wasn't not perfect because of adoption. And in fact, I believe the only time adoption ever came into the equation was when I brought it up, and I will say that I had a lot of, curiosity when I was young, and nobody really wanted to talk about it, and my parents, they didn't have any problem with me bringing it up. As a matter of fact, I knew I was adopted before I could even talk. Like, I thought everybody was adopted, you know, like that's the way I thought it was. So they told me before I could even understand language. But I had a lot of people around me in my family who were friends with my parents who, you know, when I would bring it up, they would tell me how, you know, disrespectful I am and ungrateful and stuff like that. So, you know, having that kind of curiosity was not supported in my life. So anyway, you can imagine when my mother died, my father had already passed years earlier. My grandmother, who was like the closest person in the world to me, she had passed years earlier. Everybody was gone. I mean, me and my mother, we went to 16 funerals in 3 years just before she passed. I mean, I'm sorry, it was a while before she passed when my father passed. So, and they died 15 years apart. So anyway, what I'm trying to say is when my mother died, that was like the last remnants of my adoptive family. And I have no relationship with any cousins or uncles or aunts or anything like that. And so, and you know, that's a whole other issue. But when my mother died, I was like, damn, you know, I felt pretty alone. I felt like a foster child again, you know, like it affected me in such a profound and visceral way that was unexpected for me. I didn't even really think that I would feel that way. But when she died, I kind of freaked out a little bit. And my marriage splitting up, I never thought that would happen. You know, I'm somebody who never thought he would get married. You know what I mean? Like, I was so married to my art, my music at that time. And, you know, I just never thought it would end. And, you know, we were never disrespectful towards one another. I thought we had a great relationship, you know, but I think that we didn't really water the garden. We didn't attend to it. I think that we were both pretty selfish with regards to our craft. You know, she was an actor. She is an actor. And she's an amazing human being. And I to this day, she's the love of my life. You know what I mean? Like, we're still very close. And that's one of my regrets, actually, that we just gave up. We let each other go. I think hubris got in both of our ways, and we just kind of let it go. We were just like, all right, let's just go keep living our lives and we'll stay close. And
what's wrong with Johnny? He seems a little different. Doesn't really talk like you. Even has his own way of walking. What's wrong with Johnny? He seems a little different. Although he kinda looks like you, Johnny has his own way of walking.
so anyway, I was going through a big transition. So the good thing about it was that I was in the music business still at the time, and I had been in the music business for many years, you know, since I was a late teenager. And the thing about music was that I started as a jazz musician. Like, I was a jazz head, you know, Miles Davis, John Coltrane, George Benson before Breezin', you know, although I love Breezin', but George Benson before all that, Wes Montgomery, you know, Sonny Rollins, people like that. Like, that's what I was into. Keith Jarrett was like my musical god, you know, Bill Evans. I just loved music so much. It was spiritual for me. And I was a guitar player. And I was also very interested in R&B music. Like, I grew up on R&B music, you know. For me, like Chaka Khan, Aretha Franklin, Stevie Wonder, these were like, you know, gods for me. And I was a pretty good singer, you know, and I was a good writer. And I got with this manager when I was young who thought I could be a pop star, you know. And so this journey started where he was trying to get me a record deal and turn me into Prince or Michael Jackson or something like that. And I just never felt comfortable in that, you know. And I think it showed on stage. I was a very deferential musician. I was a good musician, but I was very shy on stage and deferential and quiet. And I never felt comfortable. I didn't feel like I really belonged there. You know, if I was really being honest, I usually felt like everybody on stage around me was a better musician than me. You know, I had a lot of imposter syndrome, even though I don't think that was actually true, looking back, but that's how I felt, and that's really what's most important. You know, what you believe is true, right? So anyway, when all this happened in my life, you know, my mother passing, my marriage falling apart, all this stuff, I said, you know what, fuck all of this. I'm going to do what I want to do. You know, a few years before that, like many years before that, I saw Whoopi Goldberg do a one-woman show. I hate the term one-woman or one-man show, but a one-person show. And she actually did it at Radio City Music Hall. It was produced by Quincy Jones. And it was about all these social issues, you know, and I'm a social activist, you know. And I remember thinking, that's what I want to do, you know. That's how I can express myself, because when I tried to be an activist in my music, it was not supported, you know what I mean? It was not celebrated. It was like, nah, don't do that, write love songs, you know, be sexy, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I want to write about racism and gentrification and white supremacy. And they're like, ain't nobody interested in that, you know, who's going to give you a record deal. So I said, you know what? All of this shit is falling apart. I'm leaving music. And I'm going to go into solo theater. That's what I want to do.
You waited and waited with the greatest expectations. Arrived how he wanted to. Early he surprised you. Clear as the eye could see. Nobody could disagree that this was a beautiful, shiny, perfect little baby. Slap him on the ass. He would scream as he's supposed to. Then he gave a blast to guess. He said, I'm here at last. How come you squeeze him, you kiss him, you love him? You pass him all around the room. He's such a perfect little baby. Take him home, he's your own. You always wanted a son. You prayed and prayed, and now you got one.
So anyway, the transition, well, I guess to answer the question, you know, I love being in a band. It was an incredible rush, you know, but it's different. It's completely different. It's not really interactive in the same kind of way. You know what I mean? Like theater, even though I'm creating a story and I'm, you know, rarely breaking the fourth wall, which means I'm not engaging with the audience, I am inviting the audience into this world that I'm making up. And we're here together in this kind of place and this story that is happening in real time right now. Like it's never happened before. It's never going to happen again. It's just us right now. And it's kind of the same with music, but it's just different. I mean, I don't know how to explain it. Just to say that for me, I love being in bands, especially when I was in bands that really had the opportunity to be together for a while. Like I had a band that played like every Monday night at the Bitter End for like over a year. And that band really had a chance to, and the Bitter End, for a lot of people who don't know, that's like a legendary club down on Bleecker Street, New York City. Like, you know, Joni Mitchell, Bob Dylan, Bruce Springsteen, like so many famous people came through that club in all genres of music, rock and roll, jazz. I saw Phyllis Hyman there, Donny Hathaway played there, like legendary, you know. Jean-Luc Ponty, people like that, like real jazz artists. But it's, I guess it's known more as a rock and roll club. I had a chance to really develop my band in that scenario. And that I think was the most fun for me, even though I think the most memorable moment I ever had in music for me was I had a gig at a club called 7th Avenue South that was owned by the Brecker Brothers. And Brecker Brothers were like, I'll use the word again, legendary in New York City and actually throughout the world. And they owned this club, and it was, you know, frequented by great musicians, the top studio musicians in New York. And whenever any, you know, famous musician was in New York, they would definitely stop by 7th Avenue South and McKell's. And McKell's became my home away from home. But the first time I played at 7th Avenue South, I had a chance to work with this drummer named Steve Ferroni, who happened to be my favorite drummer on earth. He was like a drummer for the Average White Band. And I had a manager at the time, this guy M. Tume. You might have heard of James M. Tume. And before that gig, he said to me, who's your favorite? Oh, because the drummer I was using was busy for that gig. And so he said to me, who's your favorite drummer? And I said, why? He goes, I want you to use your favorite drummer for this next gig. I'll pay for it. I'm like, you don't have to do. He said, no, I'll take care of it. Who's your favorite drummer? And so I told him, I was naming some of the names of the drummers that I've worked with. He goes, no. Who's your favorite drummer of all time? You know, like somebody who you think is unapproachable. So I was like, Steve Ferroni from the Average White Band. You know, I was laughing. He goes, call registry, which was an answering service at the time. So now you know how old I am. I was an actual answering service where people answered the phone and gave the messages through beepers to the musicians who were on call all the time. Call registry, ask for Steve Ferroni's information, tell him you got a gig for him, leave your phone number. I was like, okay, but I'm thinking, Ferroni ain't calling me back. He has no idea who I am. I'm telling you, I left that message. 20 minutes later, Steve Ferroni was like in my apartment. Turned out that we lived near each other on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. I had like a little band set up in my apartment because I used to rehearse my band in my apartment. And Ferroni showed up, this legendary guy, nicest guy I've ever met. And we rehearsed for like 3 hours in my apartment, some of the most fun I ever had. And I think the most exciting moment for me ever was opening up at 7th Avenue South that first night. And literally, the moment his foot hit the pedal to push that bass drum, I was like, whoa. I knew it was like everything was at a whole different level, you know. I had Ferroni, and my friend Doc Powell was playing that gig, and my friend John Adams, and a bunch of great musicians, Lisa Fisher, and it was just absolutely amazing. And it was a fun night. We had a great night. It was packed. And, you know, I'm standing there talking to Michael Brecker after the show, you know. Will Lee. I mean, I'm talking to these guys who are like idols of mine in the club, and I'm playing on a stage where they played all the time, you know. So that, you know, experiences like that were amazing. And also playing in all the tiny little clubs. You know, I got to play in one of Prince's clubs in Minneapolis for about 6 months with my band. And we got to hang out with Prince all the time. And I got close with the head DJ of a big radio station, KMOJ in Minneapolis. Shout out to Q Bear. And so those kind of experiences were amazing. But for me personally, nothing equaled what live theater feels like to me. Like, live theater for me is like religion, you know. And I think that people who've come to see me, I know that they've described it as kind of a religious experience at times. One Monday afternoon, I'm 3 tall, strapping black men, all hats and Timbs and these big smiles and booming Brooklyn voices. What's up, Saint? Take care of that baby girl. And I feel all proud and old soul and trust and safe. And then I am 2 white teenage boys, kind of brash and loud and dreadlocked ebony girls from around the way in the bodega. That bodega. In the bodega. And then all of a sudden I am screaming ears. And I'm young and I'm curious, so I'm waiting to see what's happening. So my eyes are running, boys, and my ears are people yelling. And then all of a sudden I hear pop, 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 and pop, pop. And one of the hats is running from the bodega now. He says to me, take care of that baby girl, Saint. His Brooklyn boomer voice is the wind. Take care of that baby girl, Saint. Run, run, Saint. Run, Saint. Run. And so now I'm running and you are bouncing, you are rolling. And my heart is going boom, 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 boom in my ears. And I'm blind and I'm breathless. And I'm 7, I'm only 7. And our mothers are working. You're my responsibility. There's nobody else. And so I'm running for your life. And I'm running for our life. And I'm running, and I'm running, and I'm running, running, and I'm running, and I'm running, and I'm stopped at a red light now, and I can't move, like I'm paralyzed, like I'm wishing I could fly now, like right now, like I wish I had wings. And I see across the street this woman with a wig and a long dress, and she screams, and she points at a police officer, and she screams so loud that I'm spinning, and I'm 7 in the police, and she's screaming, and you're just lying there, and you should be safe in your stroller. And so I look down and make sure that you're okay, because the woman is pointing you, and the police are coming, and I think like, yo, that's just kind of weird. Like, how could you be sleeping through all of this? Because I notice that your eyes are closed and your head is tilted to the left, and I see that your tiny little right hand is grasping your sweater. And so I reach down and I feel that it's wet and it's red and it's covered in blood, and I'm afraid, and the police officer's pulling me away from you, and I'm fighting and I'm screaming, let go of me, let go of me. My hands are dripping and covered in you, and my hands are dripping and covered in you, and I'm fighting as hard as I can to get back to you, and the police officer's pulling me away from you. He's saying, it's okay, come on, just come with me, young man, it's okay, come on, just come with me, young man. And I'm fighting and I'm screaming, and I look at you and I see a stray bullet hole the size of my 4 fingers in your tiny little chest. And I'm screaming, and I'm crying, and I'm spitting, and I'm sick. And you are my responsibility. And I'm 7. I'm only 7. And that's the way it feels for me. It's like, it feels like the most sacred sharing of art, you know, of love. That's what it feels like to me. It feels like what love is supposed to feel like. And I get to, you know, share stories in a way that I wasn't allowed to do. I felt kind of stunted in music. And I get to do whatever I want to do, and I don't need anything. I don't need any technology. If anything happens in the theater, it doesn't matter. You know, if the lights go out, if, you know, there's a car alarm or whatever, no matter what happens, I have control. You know, as long as I have my words, as long as I have the story, I'm good. And so, and I don't know, I just feel, you know, I was born to do that, you know, like to be on stage sharing important, meaningful work, you know, and taking difficult things that people don't want to deal with, like racism, you know, misogyny, anti-Semitism, homophobia, gentrification, all the kind of stuff, you know, immigration, xenophobia. Taking that and turning it into these beautiful stories that everybody can relate to, that are like undeniably resonant for everybody. You know, because as my first director said to me, unless your story is about all of us, it's not a good story. And I had no idea what he was talking about when he said that to me. But over the years, that's what I go for all the time. I try to make sure that everything that I write is about all of us. So theater is the answer to that question for me, you know. And filmmaking too, because filmmaking to me feels like theater. It feels exactly the same. Even though I'm not performing in front of a live audience while I'm doing filmmaking, there's just something about, I guess because I'm still able to express myself in the way that I want to, and I'm drawing from the theater. Like what I do on film is all what I've gotten from theater. And personally, I feel like if you are a filmmaker, you would really benefit from, you know, getting involved in the theater world and really understanding how that works and what it's like to share with an audience and what, you know, what dialogue means in real time. And I just think it's of great value. So I would highly recommend that.
Everything was cool, but one thing everybody noticed: Johnny marched around and he was hearing his own song. Then there were the times you would ask him a question, he didn't always answer in the usual way. You're screaming, he's crying, you shake him, you're taking everything away that makes him special. Seems like you hate him, can you blame him?
So anyway, the transition was profound for me because I left everything behind and I forgot so much of what I learned my whole life. And it's interesting because, you know, oftentimes I get asked to do my play Broke Wide Open or my play Brooklyn Quartet at theater companies and stuff like that. And it's just weird to me because, you know, people think that I can just keep 2.5 hours of a play in my head all the time when I've moved on to other things. Like, Broke Wide Open was 6 years of my life. It was a 2.5 hour play. Once I got into Brooklyn Quartet, which was my next play, I had to actually go through a serious mourning process to release Broke Wide Open because I knew that there's no way I could learn this new play, this new 2.5 hour script with new characters and new places and new happenings, and everything was new. I had to let go of where I lived for 6 years. And it was really difficult for me. You know, I went through, it was like a death. It felt like death to me. And so then Brooklyn Quartet was 5 years. And then I had to let that go to move on to the Red Plaid Suitcase. And then the Red Plaid Suitcase, after 2.5 years of development, got shut down by COVID, and I had to release that to make the movie The Center of Distance because I had no choice. And I had worked so hard on that script. It took me 1.5 years to memorize the Red Plaid Suitcase. And I realized I had to let the words just spill out of my ears and out of my eye and just let them go to learn a new story. And so transition, I feel, sometimes is like that. When you move on in life, you have to let go of certain things and embrace new things. But I also know that I would not be doing what I'm doing now in filmmaking and in theater and in music and whatever I do without everything that's happened before where I am right in this moment. Like, even though I don't have the script memorized, or maybe I don't know how to play all the chord solos, or, you know, everything that I learned on piano or guitar or drums, like I knew how to play all these instruments. Maybe I don't remember all of that, but it has all informed my work. Like, I have this experience that nobody could take away from me. Like, it happened, and it is who I am. It's in my cells. It's deep in the recesses of the gray matter of my brain. And so I bring all of it with me all the time, you know. And I'm the same way with my life. I bring all of my relationships with me. You know, I don't consider that I had any bad love relationships. My marriage, my girlfriends, before that, I was in love with everybody, and I love them all to this day. And I didn't have any bad relationships with anybody. And I carry the lessons with me, so hopefully I become a better person as I move forward. At least that's my intention. And so transitions are amazing. And right now I'm going through a transition, working on another new project and letting go of the last one, you know. I just worked on This Is the End for Me. I finished that film. It's a feature film. It's going through the festival circuit right now. And I just started a new project. And it's got a working title of Disposable, but that's not going to be the title, but I'm just using that as a placeholder for now. But I'm deeply into the script already, and it's so different than anything else I've ever done. And again, I had to go through like a real mourning process, you know. And I think a lot of people around me felt me going through this mourning process. Like, I don't know, maybe they felt like I was acting like an asshole or something like that. But I was so broken after This Is the End for Me finished, because first of all, as much as I'm incredibly proud of the work, I didn't feel like it was my best work. Like, it was the best I could do under the circumstances. And see, that's part of the deal too, especially with filmmaking. You know, you can't always do what you think is your best work, because a big part of filmmaking is solving problems, you know, figuring out how to get it done. Sometimes you can't do exactly what you want to do. And as I often say, it ain't all about you. And that's something that I love about filmmaking, but it also is frustrating at times. And so I'm struggling because, you know, I missed a shot in This Is the End for Me that I felt was the most important shot of the film. And I missed it. I just fucked it up that day. And I had one chance to get it because I lost something that I was trying to shoot, and there were cops there, and it was that particular day, and it was the weather, and there's no way I could get that shot again. No way. And I think about it a lot. And if you watch the movie, you wouldn't even know. The movie's fine. It's a beautiful film. Like I said, I'm really proud of it. I think it's incredible. But I can't unknow what I know. And so now I'm into a new project. I'm transitioning again, and I'm embracing all of it. And I'm trying to be better, and I'm trying to learn better, and I'm trying to be able to carry more with me while also learning to be able to release things better too. So there are certain things in my life that I want to keep, and there are a lot of things in my life that I know I shouldn't keep. And I'm going to leave that up to you to decide how to deal with that personally for yourself. But so the answer for the question was theater, although I love music so much, sometimes when I think about it, it makes me want to cry. And I miss those days, you know. I have like sense memory sometimes when I see somebody carrying an amp into a club or a keyboard, or I see microphones. You know, recently I was in my storage space and I found all these charts from my old songs, you know, and all these cassettes of recordings of live shows that I did. And I had like 8 music stands, and I found all these keyboards and old hard drives, and, you know, like, I had like a real emotional response to that. But at the same time, theater, like if you ripped my chest open and, you know, looked in my heart, there would probably be a live theater piece going on in there, because that's who I am. That's undeniable. I know that about myself. And thank God, theater and film for me are the exact same thing. For me. That's why I can make movies by myself. I don't need a crew. I don't need anything. Now, I know I would love to experience a big crew, and I want to do that, and maybe I'll be doing that with this new film. But the process of making a movie for me is no different than the process of making a film. I mean, of making a theater piece, other than I get to use a camera. And I'm in love with cameras, you know, like I'm kind of a geek when it comes to technology too. Although, you know, I have a Panasonic S5. Like, that's looked at as a dinosaur to most people. But I love it because the image looks exactly the way I want it to look when I finish. Same thing with the GH5. I'm in love with it. I love this, you know, Zoom H1N audio recorder. You know, even though it's broken. Look at this. I mean, the back is broken, but the audio sounds so good. I got a Purple Panda lavalier mic. It costs you 35 bucks. I love it, you know. I have a Hollyland Lark Max, which I do enjoy, but I don't love it because it looks like shit, and so I try not to use it. But I have it, and I enjoy it, and I love all my stuff, you know. I love it, but I don't know. Change is good, you know. I'm going to stop this video now because I can feel that I'm getting to the end of it, and I'm just going to start to ramble. And I'm kind of proud of myself because this is a pretty long video, and I've shown you a lot of black and white photography, but I don't feel like any of it's been unnecessary until right now. And so that's what I'm going to say with regards to this particular video. The end.
You call yourself a father, what the fuck were you thinking about? Hope you think about him every night when you try to sleep. Late at night, all alone, what will you dream about? Johnny made your head explode and you sent him away. How could you? What's wrong with Johnny? He seems a little different. Doesn't really talk like you, even has his own way of walking. What's wrong with Johnny? Seems a little different.
Yo, you know what I think? I think that boy's perfect. Just like my shot. 2!